This little bugger really needs a new front brake. Man, my lips are just like frozen. It's really bad. It's just freezing cold out here. It's a nice day though, really nice day. This time last year there was probably a good, I don't know, foot of snow up here. It'd be cool to rent one of these little cabins for like a summertime. See how that goes. It would probably be pretty fun, although the traffic up here in the summer has got to be horrible. Although it wasn't that bad during Labor Day of last year, so. At least this morning I didn't have to wake up to a barking dog. You'd think that living out in the middle of nowhere, the perk would be that there's not a whole lot of people, but in the past 10 years it's gotten really jam-packed. And that's the thing is, like, of course I want to move now to an even more rural area where they don't have ordinances and things like that, but you know, because even starting your motorcycle on your own property any time of the day where I live is actually illegal if somebody else can hear it from their window as loud as your average conversation. So that's it's not very, to me that's not fair. It should be, you know, ridiculously loud. Like, say if you can hear a motorcycle at 12 noon and sorry, my visor just hit. If you can hear a motorcycle at 12 noon and it is, you know, like 89 decibels at your window, okay, yeah, maybe that's a little loud, you know, legal limit loud. But otherwise, like 50 decibels or 60 decibels, that's not a very big difference. It should be like none at all, or, you know, the legal limit. I don't know, at least that's how I feel. Anyway, ordinances just mean that there's been complaints in the past and people aren't getting along, and the only way to resolve it has been law. So that's not, to me, that's just not how we should be handling stuff. And if you're in a more rural area, even more rural than in the middle of the woods, you know, with your own property, you can't hear dogs and whatnot. Normally I'm booking up this thing at like 30-40 miles an hour, but it is freezing today. Like, probably up here there's some ice, so I just I don't feel like getting sick again, so I'll just be going slow. Plus, it seems people really appreciate, you know, when they're walking on the road, you don't come ripping up to them. Even if you do stop, it's nice if they see you kind of coming slow. And this bike's, I feel like it's a good deal quieter than the 650. I don't know for sure, but my impression is that it's a little quieter. Whoa. It dropped all the way down into that hole. Gotta remember that's a deep hole. Go a bit faster next time there. Like I said, usually I'm going a bit faster anyway. I also looked online and this bike appears, I'm not sure if somebody swapped out the rear wheel or anything, but it appears to have a Cush hub, which is really interesting because really it's kind of the same spec as the XR650, but with that Cush hub, the XR650 having so much more torque would be really nice. And that used to be a road. That's crazy. I wonder where that went. And that's the other thing around here too. I want to move to a place that's a little more rural because just the amount of legal stuff that's going on here is ridiculous. You know, we're talking they're closing down roads all the time. Yeah, I wouldn't, I'm not fighting them on it, so I suppose I have no room to talk, but it is annoying, you know. Of course, I want roads to stay open. I don't want them closed. And the thing is basically they close any road here that doesn't end in a hiking trail. So they want the hikers to be able to walk to it or drive to the beginning of the trail and then hike the rest of the way. And I kid you not, there are some really gnarly spots up here where it'd be perfect for, like, you know, double track and areas where it was a gravel road that clearly went out to the most beautiful spot, and then they just, I mean, I've seen spots where they closed it so badly you couldn't even get a bicycle in there. It's, you know, like you wouldn't want to just because it's such a difficult terrain, you wouldn't make it very far. It's just, it's pretty awful, I think. I think that we have as much of a right to roads as the other guys do. Because I mean, I'm sure everybody violates laws on a daily basis, right? So I'm sure that in the past there's been some sketchy stuff I've done, you know, where maybe it's not like the best thing to be riding in a certain spot or whatever, but I try my best to follow the rules. So, I really feel like with the growing dual sport crowd, because road bikes are getting cheaper and cheaper to get. Look at the Yamaha Tenere 700. That bike is, you know, barely more expensive than the bike that I have. Certainly less expensive than the new Honda XR250. Wow, now we're hitting the snow. Oh man, whew, barely missed that one. So anyway, more expensive than the XR650, but way less expensive, or a little less expensive, the XR450. So we're talking about a touring bike that is okay off-road, very good on the road, from the reviews I've seen. And it's going to be Yamaha reliable. It's simple. It's the first bike to come out in a long time that is like crazy dirt simple. Once again, just from the reviews I've seen. And that's my kind of bike. It's just not a Honda. So here's to hoping they're going to come out with a CRF 700L Africa Twin, you know, something like that. Because I'd be down for a little bit bigger touring bike. Because I already deal with 350 pounds. What's another 100? Right? So I'd be down for one of those. I'd keep my XR, of course, but you know, anyway, point is, it's getting cheaper and cheaper, right? So as we're getting higher quality bikes, they're becoming cheaper, and some of them are going back to the roots and being simple as well. You're going to get more people, more beginners who are doing both. You know, they're dual sport riding, they're adventure riding, they're doing OHV, and then with the rectangular plate on the back, they can go on the road. You know, it's capable road legal bikes, and there's more and more of those. They're getting cheaper, the used market's getting bigger. So I feel like, and I don't know this for sure, you know, I haven't seen any real statistics, and I doubt you'd be able to get any real statistics, but the amount of people coming out, I would say that these types of roads are going to be super desirable in the near future. So to me, anyway, I think that, you know, we should be keeping these roads open as much as possible, being responsible as much as we can be, because it's definitely worth it. And the, like, you know, you're going to want this road tomorrow, and really, like, you're going to want this road 10 years from now just to play around on. This has got a good amount of torque. Not a heck of a lot of power, but it's got a good amount of torque. I mean, okay, in reality, not a lot of torque, way more horsepower than it has torque, but it's got such an oddly tiny power band, it's really difficult for me to get used to. The tires are nice though, because going up that hill, I would have been spinning the rear tire a little bit on the 650. So whatever's on the back of this one's kind of nice. It's a big deal keeping these roads open. And it takes a mentality of preservation, not just a mentality of fun, you know. No camping, restoration in progress. I gotta be honest with you, I don't see any progress. Oh, that's cool. Man, look at this. There's crazy snow up here. And it's not just snow, it's like hard ice. Whoa, that was something. Didn't remember that bump from last year. My rear tire's washing out. Hoping that doesn't mean anything. Stop and check real quick. I don't want to get too much farther up here and realize I got a flat. Of course, I didn't bring an air pump, so... And right here, when I bend over, I actually hit the power button on the recorder. It's happened to me a few times. Basically, it's one of those slide power buttons, and it's an old-time recorder. It's not like a plug into the camera type of, like, just a microphone cable. So this one, you slide the rocker between hold and power, and I never put it on hold, so I accidentally hit the power button basically every time I bend over. So unfortunately I lost all the audio in this except for what's on the camera, so I just decided to do a voiceover. And the first thing that I wanted to say here is that it kicked over really well. It's a great bike for that. It has an automatic compression release. It's not a compression release that requires you to pull a lever. So it just goes, you basically set it by rotating the engine around slowly until you hit top dead center, and then it has compression release until it's at top dead center, and then you can feel it, and it's really hard, and you kick down as hard as you can, and usually when it's warm, it's a first kick bike. Everybody says Hondas are cold-blooded, and I would tend to agree that, you know, at least the bikes I've kicked on with Honda, they always start first kick when they're hot, but when they're cold, they take a little bit of work. So I'm just riding around. I rode up here in a circle and rode back because this road was, this gate was open. I don't know what exactly is up here, but there was a gate off that main road, and it's been closed every time I've been up here, so they opened it, and I just went and had a look, and there wasn't really anything down there. And then I'm just kind of trying to book it up this hill a little bit. I was like surprised at how soft the suspension is, and I think it's just because the spring preload needs to be set. I haven't set the sag on it or anything, so it always just kind of feels like the back wheel is like unresponsive. And you can hear me if I decide to leave the audio, and you can hear me talking too at the same time. And it's not easy to hear. And then that road right there on the right used to be open too, but they closed that a long time ago. Just turned it into a hiking trail, I think. And doing this, I did this exact same ride on the 650, and it actually seemed easier on the 650. This bike, of course, you can go like 1 mile per hour and really not worry about falling over, but it didn't like lugging very much. It's definitely like you want to be going a little bit faster. They're not as worried as much with performance on this bike, but it all could be boiled down to the suspension just not being dialed in for me yet. And it hopped over the logs just fine, but it definitely felt loose. The 650 is much more my style when it comes to hopping over logs. Right now, it would be really nice if this 250 was all set up for me too. So this road starts to get really tight in here, and it's actually on the 650. I'm so tall, so high up in the air that I actually couldn't make it back any farther than right about here. But on this short little bike, I made it all the way in. And there you look to the right, it's there's like a stream running across the road from maybe a spring or something. And just looking down there, it's full of water. There's just a ton of water in there. So I assume that used to be the continuation of the road, but most of the year, if not all year round, it's covered in water. So you can't really drive through there and anything. And I could have walked around it, but this was a before work ride, so I didn't really have a whole ton of time. So then I just made my way out of this road and got back on the main road, and I think I just started back. So I didn't actually head straight back out. There was an area that I knew of around here that I thought I might be able to make it to. But granted, this is early February, so it's relatively cold outside. You can see snow everywhere. But it's just on the left-hand side of the trail here. So I headed on in, and pretty quickly I noticed that it gets tighter, and it got really muddy, and thankfully I had very little pressure in the tires, and they're like brand new tires. So I was able to stand upright for the whole time, didn't fall over. But I noticed right about here, it started to get like huge puddles everywhere. Like the whole road is covered in water, and I think it's just from the snow melt, and there's been very little sunlight. It just keeps raining days all the time, where it's just straight 24 hours of rain. So the ground isn't able to absorb the water, and then the sunlight doesn't evaporate it. So these roads just end up getting to be just puddles, and there's one of them right there. And I thought about riding through it, but it looked like maybe it was, it was feet deep. So, and then the bike started doing this. I don't know what it was, whether it was just water in the header or if there was like oil burning or something, so I was a little freaked out. So I just checked out the bike real quick. I don't know all of what was wrong with it, but I don't think there may not have been anything wrong with it, but it was smoking a good amount there, or steaming, one or the other. And it just made me kind of think like maybe I should get a oil cooler for it. Right now it's just a wet sump engine with no oil cooler, and I think an oil cooler would probably be a good idea, just because on the 650 I don't think you can like flash vaporize water just from touching a crankcase, but on this 250 you can, so that must get a much hotter crankcase, and that's not necessarily a good thing on a bike where that's supposed to be kind of the cooling reservoir for it. So I got it all turned around here, and then I just turn it on, and I think it was first kick again. Yep, first kick. It's a really, really nice bike. You can kick it sitting down. I mean, that's pretty much how you have to kick it. It's just tall enough to where you can't really get over it and jump on it. But it's almost always first kick. Such a nice bike. I bet with a carburetor clean and a new spark plug, it would probably be a first kick every time, regardless of cold or hot. But the way it is, it's fine. So I headed back, and there wasn't really a whole lot interesting going on the way down. I kind of outroed the video twice, so I'll outro it again this time. This will be like one of the first times I actually think about ending a video while I still have battery in the camera. Just because I'm kind of learning to do it preemptively. So I'll work on that. One of my favorite things to do on both of these bikes is to jump over puddles at a high speed. It's nicer if there's no water in the puddles and if they're just dry in the summertime, because you don't get splashed. But that's one of the ways that I've learned to like transfer my weight and kind of get that front wheel up just a little bit, at least get the weight off the suspension, that way it doesn't drop down into the hole. And I'm just trying to kind of learn where the power band is just right to be able to do that and not get totally splashed. And like I said before, it would really help if it had a little bit stiffer suspension, because right now it's just so soft. It doesn't help very much. You're supposed to kind of preload the suspension, but if you preload it and it just keeps squishing down, it doesn't cut you any slack. And riding a little bit faster than I was last time, it definitely helped. Just looking at this footage makes me wish that the weather was just a little warmer. I mean, well, right now drier, because it's currently snowing outside. There's nothing on the ground, but it's currently snowing, and I really wish it was just not. The weather is supposed to be better tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, but at some point I have to take out the cam chain tensioner on my XR250 and replace that, because it's slapping around a lot, and a guy on Facebook just posted a bunch of pictures of his front engine cam chain tensioner actually getting broken and getting down into the crankcase, so that I don't want that to happen to me. So I'm going to replace that cam chain as soon as I get the chance, and I think that's probably going to be this nice weekend we have coming up. And I saw this morning on Facebook an interesting idea from, one of those, it's the Blue Ribbon Coalition, and they have an interesting perspective. They want more government spending on recreation, and it's interesting the stuff they support, because one of the new things they have going on right now in the government is they're working on opening up more recreation in general, but I think we should be fighting way more for OHV only, or highway legal, two-wheel vehicle only, because right now there's this elite mentality of people who only want hiking and mountain biking to be the only forms of recreation, and they say that it's annoying and hurts the environment when you hear noise. Well, these areas were all logged ages ago. That's why the trees are all perfectly straight and evenly spaced. They were all logged ages ago, and now the habitat, is perfectly fine. It's all a quote-unquote wilderness area now. So it's just a really annoying thing that they have going on, and I wish it was more focused on OHV. So this guy in front of me here, he's going really slow, and at first I couldn't figure out why. I mean, it is kind of a sketchy road if you're on a car, but there wasn't any ice or anything. It was warm enough, maybe 40 degrees, something like that. And there's a dog in front of him, and you can see, I think he was just walking his dog with his car, and the dog started to come up and freak out at me, and that's exactly what you're supposed to do right there. Is you drive by it and you go as slow as you can, and then right in the last second you gas it. And I probably could have gassed it a little bit earlier, but I didn't want to run it over. So it's just another, again, keep your dog on a leash. It's just the smartest thing to do. If you lose it, don't use a car to go look for it. Just call for it. It's really annoying when people do that. When people do just really dumb things, thinking they're the only person in the world. Anyway, the rest of this video isn't super incredible. It's actually just a return trip back to my house. So I'm going to end it off right here, and hopefully this voiceover was sufficient for audio, because it sounds like the audio from the camera was just totally wrecked. So I think I'm probably just going to use only this audio. Anyway, I will catch you in the next one.